0447 local time, the North Arabian Sea. The carrier strike group is running its standard pre-dawn posture, flight deck quiet, escort ships holding their screening positions. The SPY-6 radar arrays on the lead destroyer rotating through their search cycles without interruption. Then 2 new contacts materialize on the display, not approaching from a shipping lane, not broadcasting any transponder code, coming fast from the northwest at 40,000 feet, closing at Mach 1.7, and flying a course that leads directly to the center of the formation. 2 tracks, no identification, no radio contact, and already inside 200 nautical miles. The track supervisor does not reach for an alarm switch. He keys his handset and speaks in the same voice he would use to order lunch. 2 fast movers, bearing 315, no IFF, speed 1700 knots indicated, classify and track. The words travel through the encrypted tactical network and reach every ship and aircraft in the strike group simultaneously. On the USS Abraham Lincoln, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier displacing 100,000 tons in the water below, the Combat Information Center receives the update before the track supervisor has finished his sentence. That is not a coincidence. That is the cooperative engagement capability doing exactly what it was designed to do. Make every sensor in the formation, the eyes of every weapon in the formation, simultaneously, without delay. But right now, the formation does not know what it is looking at. And that uncertainty is exactly what the 2 pilots flying those aircraft are counting on. The Su-35s is the most capable air superiority fighter in the Iranian Air Force inventory. Acquired from Russia and delivered in a transaction that drew condemnation from every Western government and changed nothing about the transfer. It is a large aircraft, heavier than most people expect a fighter to be, with a massive internal fuel load that gives it a combat radius exceeding 1,000 nautical miles without external tanks. It carries the Kh-41A anti-radiation missile and the Kh-35 subsonic anti-ship weapon. But its most dangerous armament for this mission is the Kh-41 Moskit, a ramjet-powered sea-skimming missile that accelerates to Mach 2.5 at terminal phase and carries a warhead designed specifically to penetrate the layered armor of a large surface combatant. A single hit from a Kh-41 does not sink an aircraft carrier, but it does not need to. It needs only to disable the flight deck. A carrier that cannot launch or recover aircraft is no longer a carrier. It is a 100,000-ton liability. The 2 pilots flying toward the strike group know this. They have trained for this specific mission profile for 2 years. They know the detection range of the SPY-6 radar. They know the engagement envelope of the SM-6 interceptor. They know the maximum altitude of the E-2D Hawkeye. They have built their entire approach around the assumption that if they fly fast enough, high enough, and execute the weapon release before the intercept fighters can close to firing range, the mathematics of time and distance will work in their favor. They have no idea that the mathematics changed while they were planning. 43,000 feet above the strike group, an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye radar aircraft has been orbiting since before midnight. Its AN/APS-145 radar dome rotates continuously, painting a surveillance picture that extends 350 miles in every direction. The Hawkeye acquired the 2 Su-35s the moment they crossed the Iranian coastline outbound, not when they appeared on the destroyer's radar, when they left their airfield. The emissions profile from the Su-35's Urbisi radar, even in standby mode, is as distinctive as a fingerprint. The Hawkeye's electronic surveillance suite identified the aircraft type within 90 seconds of first detection and has been tracking their precise position, altitude, speed, and heading for the past 40 minutes without either pilot knowing they are being watched. Think of it as being followed by someone who never gets close enough for you to see them. Someone who has known your destination since before you left your driveway and has already called ahead. The Hawkeye transmits a continuous targeting track through Link 16 to every ship in the formation. The strike group commander receives a threat assessment that includes not just where the aircraft are, but a probability-weighted analysis of their most likely weapon release point based on the Kh-41's optimal launch parameters. The system has already calculated the intercept geometry. It knows where the Su-35s are going to be before they get there, and it has been positioning the response since before the destroyer's radar operator called the contact. On the Lincoln's flight deck, 2 F A-18F Super Hornets have been sitting on the catapults at Alert 5 status, engines running, pilots strapped in, weapons armed and uploaded. They do not need to be briefed on the threat. The targeting data from the Hawkeye is already feeding directly into their aircraft systems through the data link. Before the catapult officer gives the launch signal, both pilots already know the bearing, altitude, speed, and probable weapon loadout of the aircraft they are being sent to intercept. The launch takes 11 seconds. Both fighters are airborne and climbing through 10,000 feet before the first Iranian pilot notices the radar warning tone that tells him he has just been acquired by an airborne fire control system. He notices it at 140 nautical miles. He should have noticed it at 200. That 11-mile difference in detection range is not an accident. It is the result of the Hawkeye using a technique called emission-controlled tracking, in which the Hawkeye's own radar operates at a reduced output power that is still sufficient to maintain a precise track on the target, but falls below the detection threshold of the Su-35's radar warning receiver. The Iranian pilot has been inside a firing solution for 40 minutes. He only just learned about it. The two Su-35s react immediately. The lead aircraft pitches its nose down and descends sharply, dropping from 40,000 feet toward the ocean surface. The wingman brakes right and accelerates, attempting to widen the separation between the two aircraft and force the intercept fighters to choose between targets. It is a disciplined response, exactly what the pilots were trained to do. And it is also exactly what the Hawkeye's predictive tracking model anticipated. The moment the Su-35s began their defensive split, the system updated the intercept geometry for both Super Hornets automatically, assigning one aircraft to each Iranian fighter without any voice coordination between the pilots. But the lead Su-35 pilot has not abandoned the mission. He is not running. He is repositioning. The dive toward the ocean surface is not evasion. It is weapon release preparation. The Kh-41 Moskit is most effective when launched from low altitude on a sea-skimming trajectory, because at 15 feet above the water, the missile is nearly invisible to surface radar and gives shipboard defense systems the minimum possible reaction time. The pilot knows that if he can get low enough, fast enough, and reach his launch bearing before the intercept fighters close to aim, 120 range, he still has a viable shot at the carrier. He reaches 22,000 feet, 18,000. The Super Hornet assigned to him is closing from the northwest at Mach 1.4, but is still outside weapons release range by 4 nautical miles. The Iranian pilot continues his descent. 14,000 feet, 10,000. He is almost at the profile he needs. His weapons officer activates the Kh-41 seeker head. The missile's guidance radar illuminates the ocean ahead, searching for the carrier's return. The signal finds it almost instantly. A massive acoustic and radar return at 61 nautical miles. The targeting solution locks. Inside the destroyer's electronic warfare suite, a threat receiver triggers. Active missile seeker detected. Bearing 287. The signal is unmistakable. It is not the Su-35's fire control radar. It is the Kh-41 itself looking for a target. That distinction matters because it tells the defensive system something critical. The weapon has not been launched yet. The seeker is active because the pilot is verifying the targeting solution before release. There is a window. It is measured in seconds, but it exists. The EA-18G Growler that has been orbiting at altitude since before the intercept fighters launched activates the AN/ALQ-99 tactical jamming system on a frequency band that is specifically matched to the AMA Kh-41 seeker profile. The Growler does not try to jam the Su-35. It targets the missile's own guidance radar with a deceptive waveform that is not white noise, but a carefully engineered false return signal that makes the carrier appear to be 2 miles further north and 4 degrees left of its actual position. The Kh-41 seeker is not fooled completely, but it is confused for long enough. The Iranian pilot, seeing a targeting solution that suddenly does not match his inertial navigation data, hesitates for 3 seconds while his system attempts to reconcile the conflicting information. Those 3 seconds are everything. The FA-18F assigned to him reaches aim, 120D release range at Mach 1.6. The weapons employment zone opens. Box 3. The AMRAAM leaves the rail and ignites, accelerating to Mach 4 immediately, its active radar seeker in home-on-jam mode, using the Su-35's own electronic emissions as a guidance beacon. The Iranian pilot's radar warning receiver screams. He brakes hard left, pulling 9G and descending through 5,000 feet, deploying a full chaff and flare sequence. The maneuver is violent and well executed. He is a skilled pilot. He is sped, is a right as from dollars. The AMRAAM tracks through the chaff cloud, adjusts for the turn, and detonates 18 meters behind the Su-35 at the optimal fragmentation angle. The blast does not bring the aircraft down immediately. The warhead's tungsten fragments punch through the Su-35's right engine bay and shred the fuel feed lines. The right engine flames out. The hydraulic pressure in the flight control system drops sharply. The aircraft is still flying, but it is no longer a weapons platform. It is a damaged aircraft trying to remain airborne with one engine and degraded control authority. The Kh-41 never launches. The pilot's only concern now is reaching Iranian airspace. The wingman fares differently in one respect and identically in outcome. He never reached his launch bearing at all. The second Super Hornet closed to within 30 nautical miles before the wingman completed his evasion maneuver. And at that range, the AIM-120D does not require a clean shot. It requires only that the target exist and emit. The wingman deploys his countermeasures and breaks into a climbing turn that takes him above 40,000 feet, attempting to deny the missile the flat intercept geometry it prefers. The AMRAAM follows him up, adjusts, and detonates close enough to the Su-35's fuselage that the blast overpressure cracks the canopy and temporarily disables the aircraft's radar. The wingman is unhurt, but flying blind, his entire sensor suite offline, his communication link to the Iranian coastal command cell severed by the electromagnetic pulse from the detonation. He turns for home on backup instruments. Both Iranian aircraft are withdrawing. Neither has released a weapon against the strike group. Neither will. But here is what the IRGC commanders watching from the Coastal Operations Center in Bandar Abbas do not yet understand, and what will take them months to fully process. The engagement was not just a defensive action. It was a collection operation. From the moment the Su-35s lifted off their airfield, every electronic system on both aircraft was broadcasting. Search radar pulses, fire control radar activation sequences, data link traffic between the two pilots, the Kh-41 seeker activation signal, the specific frequency patterns the pilots used when they began their defensive maneuvers. All of it was captured. Every microsecond of radar emission was recorded by the Hawkeye's electronic surveillance suite, the Growler's passive receivers, and 3 additional signals intelligence collectors that were never visible to either Iranian pilot. The data package that left the strike group's intelligence center within 90 minutes of the engagement's conclusion contained a complete electronic order of battle for Iran's Su-35 fleet in combat. Configuration, radar operating frequencies, weapon seeker profiles, pilot behavioral patterns under fire, and the precise moment in the engagement sequence when the lead aircraft's targeting hesitation revealed the outer boundary of the Kh-41 seeker's susceptibility to deceptive jamming. That last piece of information alone is worth more than the 2 aircraft that tried to use it in the intelligence centers of the 5th Fleet and beyond. Analysts are now building a defeat profile for the Kh-41 Moskit that is based not on theory or manufacturer specifications, but on actual observed combat employment data from an operational engagement. The next time that missile flies in the direction of a U.S. Navy asset, the Growler crew executing the jamming solution will not be working from a historical library. They will be working from a precise, measured profile of exactly how this specific missile behaved when it looked for an American carrier and found a deceptive signal instead. Now look at this engagement from the strategic level, and the picture becomes even more unfavorable for the IRGC than the tactical outcome suggests. Iran paid approximately $250 million per aircraft for its Su-35 fleet. The 2 aircraft that flew this mission sustained damage severe enough to require extensive depot-level maintenance. and one of them may never return to operational status, depending on the extent of the hydraulic and structural damage to the engine bay. The total cost of the U.S. response, including the 2 AMRAAM missiles, the Growler sortie, the Hawkeye flight hours, and the Super Hornet intercept mission, came in somewhere south of $8 million. Against a $250 million per unit target, that is not an exchange ratio. It is an economic statement. Iran invested $500 million in the 2 aircraft that attempted this mission. The U.S. expended less than 2% of that figure to defeat it, record everything about it, and walk away with information that makes the next attempt even cheaper to defeat. The deeper lesson runs underneath the dollars and the hardware and gets to something that no amount of procurement spending can solve for the IRGC. Speed. Not the speed of the aircraft or the missiles, the speed of the decision cycle. From the moment the Su-35s were detected leaving Iranian airspace to the moment the intercept fighters were airborne and vectored on an optimized intercept course, 11 minutes elapsed. In those 11 minutes, no voice communication between ships was required to coordinate the defensive response. No commander had to call a superior for authorization to launch. The Hawkeye identified, classified, and tracked. The Link 16 network distributed the picture. The Aegis system calculated the geometry. The alert fighters launched on pre-authorized standing rules of engagement. Every node in that system executed its function autonomously and in parallel, not sequentially. The Iranian pilots were flying into a defensive response that was already 90% complete before they knew they had been detected. In Tehran, authorization to conduct this mission traveled through the IRGC Aerospace Command, the Joint Chiefs, and the Supreme National Security Council before the pilots received a go order. That chain exists for political and doctrinal reasons that are not going to change regardless of how many engagements like this one in the same way. And that chain, in a tactical environment where the decisive actions happen in the first 4 minutes, is not a command structure. It is a delay built into the architecture of the adversary. The U.S. Navy does not need to defeat the IRGC's Su-35s in the air. It needs only to operate faster than the authorization chain that governs them. It has been doing that for 30 years, and the gap is not closing. At 0631 local time, the carrier's flight deck resumes standard operations. The first aircraft of the morning cycle launches on schedule. The strike group maintains its course and speed without deviation. No sailor on the flight deck who was not directly involved in the engagement would know from looking at the ocean that anything had happened in the previous 2 hours. The carrier did not accelerate. It did not change course. It did not reduce its operational tempo by a single sortie. That continuity is deliberate, and it is the most important signal the strike group sends, not the AMRAAM intercepts, not the Growler jamming. The fact that the carrier kept operating as if the attack was a minor administrative inconvenience rather than an existential threat tells every adversary watching with satellites and signals intelligence exactly where the U.S. Navy places this category of threat on its scale of concern. Somewhere over the Gulf of Oman, 2 damaged Su-35s are limping back toward Iranian airspace on reduced power and backup systems. Their pilots flew the mission correctly. They executed their training. They were defeated not by superior flying or superior courage, but by a system architecture that knew where they were before they took off, processed the entire engagement faster than any human decision cycle could match, and recorded everything they revealed about themselves in the process. They went out to strike an aircraft carrier. They came back having handed the U.S. Navy a detailed technical manual on how to defeat them. That is the outcome the IRGC will have to brief to its leadership. And that briefing, wherever it happens, will not be a comfortable one. If you want to understand the full architecture of what just dismantled one of the most capable fighter aircraft in the Middle Eastern theater, subscribe. We break down how these systems actually function in the real engagement envelope, not the version that appears in press releases. And tell me in the comments, if Iran sends 4 Su-35s next time instead of 2, with staggered attack timing designed to exhaust the intercept fighter coverage, does the math change? Think through it before you answer. Because the answer depends entirely on one variable that most people overlook, and that variable is not the number of missiles. The scenario described in this video is a technical and tactical analysis based on real military assets, published performance specifications, and documented regional tensions. The specific engagement sequence is a hypothetical dramatization created to illustrate U.S. Navy integrated air defense doctrine and carrier strike group defensive architecture.